Welcome back. To make the most of the natural environment, we need to consider both the waterways and the land, the blue and the green infrastructure. To learn more about the proposals to restore our waterways in the east, I spoke to Professor Bryan Jenkins from the Waterways Centre for Freshwater Management.
The Avon is probably the most polluted waterway we have in the Canterbury region. And a lot of that results from the stormwater and sewage overflows that come into the Avon system. We have quite an old system in Christchurch. It is quite a leaky system. When you get heavy rainfall, you get a lot of groundwater infiltration, and that means the sewerage system cannot cope with the water load. That means that you then get direct discharges into the river. Christchurch East has quite an old design of a stormwater system. It was designed to make certain that rainwater was discharged from the land very quickly into the river. And that brings with it all of the contaminants as well.
What value do naturally restored wetlands have on improving things?
There's probably two major components that you can build into constructed wetlands. One is the improvement in water quality, and the key things that you can start removing are the bacterial contamination and also a lot of the sediment. We have a unique opportunity here with the residential red zone, where we have land along the Avon which can be used for constructed wetlands. The other key component that we'd be interested in seeing incorporated into any red zone redevelopment is the ability to collect some of the sewage overflows. In terms of biodiversity, what we would like to see is recreation of the old floodplain habitat along the entire corridor of the Avon River. And the residential red zone provides the opportunity for doing that. And one of the things that I think is particularly important in a wetland like this is one where there is tidal influence, and this site is one of the more important sites for inunga spawning. This can be used as an example of what could be applied for other parts of the Avon-Otokaro system to try and design constructed wetlands to be suitable for habitat, not just for whitebait, but for other species as well. If you look at what's happened as a result of the earthquake, there has been about a 0.5 metre decline in the land level, which means the area is more flood prone. So in addition to creating the constructed wetlands and biodiversity, what we'd like to see is the reintroduction of the floodplain to integrate the corridor land use with the floodplain management requirements for the overall Avon-Otokaro catchment. And that's going to require integration of all of the tributary catchments with the river system and with the floodplain management zone areas. So as a combination, you can actually improve on flood management, biodiversity, and also water quality.
What would success look like?
Success would be a river which has improved water quality, would be suitable to be able to eat the whitebait and fish that are in the river system. It's a major corridor. Very few cities have the opportunities of being able to create a corridor concept that can deal with water quality, biodiversity and flood management.
What a great opportunity to enhance our waterways. But also in the east, there now exists a tremendous opportunity to restore the natural land-based habitats. To find out more, I spoke with Ashley Campbell and Professor Glenn Stewart of Greening the Red Zone.
We're a group of people who came together with the same idea in mind, that what we really wanted to happen in the Red Zone was restoration of our native habitat. So bringing a bit of what would be here if we weren't here back into Christchurch. We're talking about a place where people can go and they can really enjoy New Zealand's nature without having to leave the city.
We're sitting here in Wreckin Bush, which is a jewel. This is an indigenous biodiversity hotspot for the city. Wreckin Bush is great, but it's only 6 hectares. You know, if we can create a forest that's 20, 30, 40, 50 bigger area, it is much more sustainable. The whole grassing of the area is an issue. Most native species won't germinate into a lawn.
You can't, if you've got small patches that are isolated, it's not going to work. You actually do have to make it go all the way through. A lot of this will be done on goodwill and volunteers. There will be costs, but they don't have to be as huge as some people think they could be. And there is absolutely no doubt that if you live close to an accessible green space, somewhere that you can get in and among, you are less likely to have an anxiety or mood disorder. Study that was done for Avon Otakaro Network a few years ago actually put the health savings, the physical health savings, at $50.3 million a year just for having an eco park through the Avon River Red Zone. That's huge. That's a massive saving. So when we look at costs, we also have to look at benefits. This is about the environment, but it's also about bringing a sustainable economic environment to the east as well, something that people come to see because they hear how fantastic it is. And while they're there, they spend their money. This isn't just the environment, it's also people, and it's also the economy, and it's all of them working together in the best possible way. There are several proposals that fit perfectly into this. The wetlands for stormwater management, the eco sanctuary, the natural playgrounds, the Avon Otakaro cycle and walkway network. Those things just are absolutely part of what we're on about. They're all about sustaining nature, they're about cleaning up our rivers, they're about creating a place for people to be and to get in and among.
A lot of people actually planted native vegetation in their backyard, and on some of the larger properties around the river, around Avonside and Richmond and some of those places, we've got some quite substantial little pieces of native woodland, I suppose. We can create more of them, we can make larger areas of native forest. It's great for the indigenous fauna. You know, we're already seeing, since the restoration of a lot of native vegetation in Christchurch in the last 20 years, a real influx of bellbirds. You know, a lot of people call Christchurch the bellbird city of New Zealand now.
Everybody who lives anywhere near the red zone comments about how wonderful it is to have bellbirds close by, to hear grey warblers, to see fantails. Imagine that on steroids. Imagine if there was 450 hectares of natural habitat and those birds were in Christchurch for good, never to go away again.
Well, it's hard to argue with that logic, isn't it? Coming up, we look at two further proposals for making the most of the natural environment. Proposals that add further value to the restoration of Mahinga Kai and the blue and green infrastructure.